The army outlawed his homemade weapon until it annihilated a column of enemy scouts and changed the war overnight. This is the story of a forbidden tactic born from desperation and scrap metal. In the cold, damp hours before dawn on March 12, 1944, a soldier waited. His name was Corporal James Dalton, and he was concealed in a rain-filled trench outside the shattered town of Cassino. His eyes were fixed on a German reconnaissance vehicle approaching his company's line. He held no specialized weapons. His only tool was a contraption every superior officer had ordered him to destroy. In 60 seconds, that makeshift device would achieve what standard-issue gear could not. The U.S. military field guides listed over a dozen approved ways to counter light armor. Dalton's method wasn't on any list. Command had warned him twice about disciplinary action for unauthorized field experiments. But manuals mean little when you've buried 11 friends in 3 weeks because the regulation equipment never arrived. He tightened his grip. Morning mist hung over the Leary Valley like a burial shroud. The engine's grind grew louder. He could see the commander standing in the open hatch. The wire in his hands felt alive with tension. One opportunity. He held his breath. Dalton's childhood was a training ground he never recognized. Growing up in the shadow of Gary, Indiana's steel mills, his father worked furnace shifts that stretched from dark to dark. James was the middle son who skipped school to haunt the rail yard. There he learned a vital language, the language of mechanical failure. He saw how a single sheared bolt could doom a freight car, and how a length of spare cable could prevent disaster. The lesson was simple. When proper parts aren't available, you improvise with what's at hand. He enlisted at 19, trading the rail yard for a rifle and a convoy to North Africa. By the autumn of 1943, his division was clawing its way up the Italian peninsula. Every hill was a fortress, but a quieter killer emerged, the German armored scout car. The ZKFZ 222 was fast, lightly armored, and armed with a cannon. It would appear at dawn, pinpoint Allied positions, and vanish before retaliation, only for precise artillery to rain down hours later. Doctrine demanded anti-tank rifles or rocket launchers. The reality was a cruel joke. The entire division possessed a handful of bazookas. Mines were guarded like gold. So men died, not in pitched battles, but to observers in armored cars they couldn't touch. Private First Class Edward Kowalski died on February 18th. A 222 glided past his post at first light. His rifle rounds ricocheted harmlessly. The vehicle's machine gun did not. He was 20. Sergeant Michael Brennan died 5 days later, cut down by an autocannon after a grenade throw fell short. He was 24. Corporal Luis Vargas was killed on March 4th, caught in the open during another dusk patrol. He always shared his last cigarette. By early March, nearly 50 men from the division had been lost to these ghostly vehicles. Each death felt like a theft to Dalton. Each funeral fueled a quiet, burning fury. The official response from headquarters was a memo. Maintain defensive posture. Await resupply. At a briefing in a damp barn, Captain Morrison, fresh from a rear area headquarters, reiterated the command. Dalton stood in the back, the smell of wet wool and cordite thick in the air. "Sir," Dalton interjected, his voice cutting through the resigned silence. "The scout cars use the same paths. What if we strung wire across the road? At axle height?" Morrison stared at him as if he'd spoken nonsense. "The manual specifies authorized obstacles. We are not deploying random tripwires." Dismissed. The order was clear. But the scout cars kept coming. The choice became stark. Follow regulations and watch more men die, or break every rule and maybe save them. On the night of March 10th, after 2 more friends were killed, Dalton made his decision. Under a moonless sky, he moved alone. He took a coil of old barbed wire and 2 standard-issue folding shovels. The mud was deep, the cold penetrating. Artillery flashed on the northern horizon. He chose a spot where the road narrowed. He drove the first shovel deep into the earth at the roadside, then the second directly opposite. The wire was fastened to the shovel handles, pulled taut across the dirt track, precisely 14 inches high, the height of a scout car's front axle. He buried the strand under a whisper of soil. The shovels, rusted and dirty, looked like discarded trash. The trap was set in 23 minutes. He returned to his foxhole, his secret coiled in the dark. He waited for dawn and for judgment. At 6:43 a.m., the familiar whine echoed through the fog. A gray 222 emerged, cruising at a routine pace. Dalton watched, unmoving, as it closed the distance. 400 yards, 300, 200. The commander scanned with binoculars, oblivious. At 50 yards, Dalton's entire world narrowed to the spinning front tires. Impact. The wire caught the axle. The wheel seized. Momentum did the rest. The 2-ton vehicle pitched forward, then flipped violently, tumbling end over end in a cloud of debris before settling upside down, wheels spinning uselessly. Silence. Then the crackle of small arms fire as Americans rushed forward. Dalton reached the wreck first. The German commander was dead. The dazed driver surrendered. As others secured the prisoner, Dalton's hands moved quickly, coiling the unbroken wire and stuffing it into his pack before the evidence could be seen. Captain Morrison arrived minutes later, surveying the bizarre scene. "What happened, Corporal?" "It flipped, sir. Must have hit a hole." Morrison's eyes held a knowing suspicion, but with a captured enemy and a destroyed asset, he let it go. "Get it documented," but soldiers talk. By that afternoon, a buddy from back home, Private Morris, cornered him. "Jimmy, I saw the wire. Does it work?" Dalton met his friend's gaze. "You didn't see anything." A pause. "But yes, it worked." That night, he showed Morris how to do it. Knowledge spread through the unit like a clandestine rumor. Not by official order, but by quiet, desperate need. Another wire was set, then another. On March 18th, a second scout car flipped. On the 21st, a third crashed and was abandoned. A silent underground war had begun. By month's end, German reconnaissance patrols in the sector dropped by over half. The scout cars that did venture out moved with a new, crippling caution. A German lieutenant, puzzled by wrecks with no clear cause, found a wire fragment in a wheel well. A report was filed and dismissed. Wire couldn't stop armor. Yet the orders changed. Scan all roads before advancing. Captain Morrison discovered the truth on April 3rd, catching a private in the act. Instead of delivering a reprimand, the captain took out his notebook. "Show me," he ordered. He documented the method, the angles, the results. He compiled a report with a staggering 87% success rate and sent it to battalion command. The response arrived on April 19th. Method unauthorized. Discontinue immediately. Violates engineering safety standards. Morrison read the directive. Then he filed it away and said nothing. The wires unofficially remained. The tactic born from a rusted shovel and defiance never entered the official manual. But in that stretch of Italian front, it saved lives. It proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't issued by an army. It's forged in the mind of one soldier who refuses to accept the inevitable. Innovation thrives not in boardrooms, but in the mud of necessity. The simplest solution is often the one regulation forget. If you found this story of desperate ingenuity compelling, please like this video